the development in jurisprudence for, repealing these infringements to the Second Amendment. So, they're kind of like grasping, what's the Star Wars thing? The harder they grip on, the more things slip through their fingers.
You know that Star Wars is nerd stuff and
Yeah.
Star Trek is not. So if it's not Star Trek, I will not acknowledge it.
Don't have a Star Trek analogy for you.
We are the Arms Attorneys. Today we are talking to you about a new firearm win for our poor population who live in the state of Illinois. But congratulations, we've got some good things to talk about. We're going to talk about what happened, what law is coming down, what the Buren analysis was that helped us out here, and finally, why does the government hate you so much? But before we get started, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting the like button.
And we have a new sponsor today with an exciting offer, Grunt Style.
We have a new sponsor with an exciting offer.
Are you looking for apparel that stands for something? Grunt Style is veteran founded and run and has been committed to liberty, patriotism, and freedom. Like us, they take pride in self, the military, and our country.
Their motto, "This will defend," is the same as the U.S. Army's right there on the arm patch. Grunt Style isn't just about tees. They've got pullovers, hoodies, and outerwears for fall, plus loads of new arrival. We've been sporting their shirts for a while now. They're fantastic. Their styles fit both men and women perfectly. I hate looking like I'm wearing like a garbage bag, and it's been fantastic.
Armed Attorney viewers get 20% off site-wide. Go to gruntstyle.com. Use discount code ARM20 at checkout. The code is valid on all regularly priced items from now until the end of the year, and you can use the code as often as you'd like.
That's gruntstyle.com and then discount code ARM20 at checkout.
And today we're talking about Schoenthal v. Raoul, and if you want to check this case out, we'll flash it up on the screen, but it's 322CV50326. This was out of the state of Illinois, and this had to do with the Illinois Firearm Concealed Carry Act's ban on carrying firearms generally on public transportation. Now we're talking about folks who have a license issued by the state of Illinois to carry firearms generally in public. They had that prohibition there, We got some big cities in the state of Illinois, Chicago, looking at you, where public transportation, a lot of people utilize that. But this ban made it impossible, virtually, to carry in public for self-defense in cities like that.
Which is, I guess we'll skip to the end here, why the government hates you so much. Because I cannot imagine, in my great state of Texas, I cannot imagine how the government looks and says, these are licensed to carry holders, right? Or CCW, whatever the terminology is in Illinois. They have been vetted by the government. They are designated, documented good guys. They're going to a dangerous location, which is public transportation. We all know public transportation can be dangerous, and we want to make sure that they cannot defend themselves.
Yeah, I was watching a montage the other day of United States public transportation and Japanese public transportation. There were some notable differences.
I would be interested to watch that. I can only imagine.
Our stuff is basically a public bathroom on wheels for the most part, as far as I can tell. But that's
yeah. Well, in Houston, with those downtown light rails, those mobile bum restrooms.
Yeah, those are. It's always kind of sidebar. It's always kind of funny whenever there's like a big event downtown. Everybody gets out, and then the intermingling. It's super dangerous. But as a practical note, as a everyday carrier, when you're going to a prohibited location. For most folks, that goes into your calculation of whether or not you decide to carry for the entire day, not just, hey, this place is off limits. I'm going to, leave it in my car. That's what most folks do. But when you're involved with public transportation, it really jacks up your whole day.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we have documented good guys making a constitutional challenge to this portion of Illinois' law, which is phenomenal because what happens when you make a constitutional challenge to a anti-gun law based on Second Amendment grounds?
Well, you get a Buren analysis. So what is that? Well, we look at the framework that we got in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Buren. That is, is the Second Amendment implicated in this? Is this in the ambit of the Second Amendment? If the answer is yes, the burden shifts to the government to prove based on the text of the Second Amendment and is informed by history and tradition. I will say there's one thing about this case I want to talk about where I think they get it wrong here. But they say, all right, is this something that would have been legislated or would there have been a law regulating this at the time of the adoption of the Second Amendment in 1791? And the answer to that for this case is no.
Well, which again makes perfect sense. And I think that what's interesting first, actually, back it up. I want to know what you think they got wrong.
So what I think they got wrong is they tiptoed into Reconstruction era laws.
Oh, no. Yeah, you're right.
So they got that wrong. But even jumping over to Reconstruction, they could not find. So I don't think they faithfully applied the test. But even giving the gun grabbers everything they want, saying like, oh, look at all these racist gun laws we have from post-Civil War, they could not find an analog that would have been applicable.
Well, okay, perfect. And then that brings me to my point I was about to bring up before, which is what does this mean for carry bans generally in public? Because I think it's very, very good. I think that we're seeing more and more courts faithfully or near faithfully apply a good Buren challenge to this sort of issue, right? We've talked in the past on the channel about things that are a little bit outside the norm, or maybe even things that are like very, very grand scale, like who can possess. But this is a very straightforward carry in public issue. And I'm wondering what the future of those sort of restrictive laws are, because I mean, at some point, the baddies are not going to be able to pass the same laws over and over and over again.
No, but
by that I mean Illinois, New York, New Jersey, Cal. You know, I'm talking to you.
Well, to a small point, I mean, they are helping accelerate the development in jurisprudence for, repealing these infringements to the Second Amendment. So, they're kind of like grasping, what's the Star Wars thing? The harder they grip on, the more things slip through their fingers.
You know that Star Wars is nerd stuff. And Star Trek is not. So if it's not Star Trek, I will not acknowledge it.
Don't have a Star Trek analogy for you. But, it has helped in the acceleration and fleshing out, hey, when we start applying this framework to things, making, that's what we need as gun owners. And this is from gun grabbers' perspective, this is a legitimate tactic, is creating regulatory confusion.
Oh, yeah.
And when we have these black and white lines, it makes things a lot easier. It makes us, I talk to people all the time who are like, I just don't know the law. I'm just going to forego it. I'm not going to do it. And that makes people less safe.
Absolutely. But I believe, and I could be wrong, that we are very close to a tipping point in which at least these sort of general carry bans in public are going to slow and finally trickle to a stop, because there's just no more legitimate avenue. Now, that being said, not only do they love creating regulatory confusion, they love making the pro-gun groups spend money on litigation, because it means we can't be on the offense. I mean, if all the money is going to the defense, we can't be on the offense. And they know that. But I just have to believe. I have to believe there is some honesty in government. Not a lot, but some. Enough such that these are getting struck down over and over and over again. And at some point, the bad legislatures are going to try something different.
Yeah, and
maybe,
I would break these things out into kind of 3 categories. So private property, I think that's going to remain sacred, rights with private property owners, and it should be that way.
Yeah.
We have these generally out in public. That's where we're at right now, striking down these bans. The this is where I think the next fight will be post, hey, we got all the public places resolved. Government buildings, if they don't have a legitimate analog, reason why they can exclude folks with firearms, then, that's where the fight's going.
Richard's battleship around the president, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's not even to speak of, like, we have an entirely different, like, pipeline of, like, what's legal and what's not. Like, right, what can you restrict?
Right.
Who is legal and who is not in terms of who's allowed to have their Second Amendment rights. So different pipelines. But in terms of the carry pipeline, I think that's absolutely correct.
Yeah, and it's developing, I will say, it's going about as fast as you can
go. Yeah.
All right, so what is going on with the case now? Well, we have the state of Illinois saying, hey, we're appealing this case. They have requested a stay from the Court of Appeals. We haven't got that decision just yet.
They're going to stay it.
You think so?
I think they're going to stay it. I mean, it's Illinois.
Just to be contrary, I'm going to say they're not going to stay it.
I hope they don't.
Well, I mean, they gave the gun grabbers everything they wanted, and they still came to the correct conclusion, even though they didn't faithfully apply New York State Rifle and Pistol Association. Apart from, the standards to stay I guess it's not that much when we really talk about it. If an appeals court wants to stay it, they theoretically could, because that would go back to status quo. But I'm just going to be contrary to you.
Well, what else is new? Here's the thing. This is why I think that they're inclined to stay it, is that the state is going to cry public safety, which is ridiculous. But anytime there is a sweeping change in carry law, gun law, the state cries public safety. And in some states, the Court of Appeals is going to say, absolutely not. I don't know. I just have a feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the blood running in the streets.
Right.
Been hearing that since like
Forever.
yeah, for 30 years.
Yeah.
Just hasn't really happened.
Not yet.
So,
maybe this next gun law will finally be the blood. The next piece of freedom will finally be the blood in the streets freedom, and the anti-gunners will be proved correct finally, and we will all eat our words.
You know, if it wasn't a, more guns equals less crime, I could see where they're coming from. The data just do not support any of that.
No.
But we hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video.
And head on over to our friends at gruntstyle.com. Use that ARM20 promo code. Get your 20% off some really nice t-shirts. Until next time, we're the Armed Attorneys.